Political information. We're joined today by Peter Schweitzer. He's the author of Throw Them All Out, fellow at the Hoover Institution. He's written a book about how politicians enrich themselves. Peter, what's going on with the so-called Stock Act?
Well, the Stock Act is a piece of legislation that's been around for a while, but it never really got much attention. It had 9 co-sponsors in total. Now with the attention on this subject, it has passed the Senate 96-3, and it's going to be taken up by the House of Representatives next week. The law basically does a couple of things. Number one, it says that it is a federal crime to use congressional inside information to trade on stocks to gain an informational advantage. And so there would be penalties of that for congressmen, but also for their staff members were they to do that. The second thing it does is it changes the reporting requirements. Right now they only have to report their finances, that is their assets and their trades once a year, and they only do it on paper. So it's hard to even know exactly what kind of stocks they're trading and whether it's connected with legislative activity. And the Stock Act says they now need to report every 90 days rather than just once a year. And then the final thing. Okay. The final thing it does, Daniel, is it regulates for the first time people that collect political intelligence, which is sell political legislative information to the financial community.
And just to reiterate, if you are on the House Banking Committee and you are about to report out a piece of legislation that you kind of believe or know the market will think will impact banks negatively, you are allowed to short a banking stock index or short some individual names. Totally legal.
That's correct. That's correct. There is absolutely no restriction whatsoever. If you are on the Oversight Committee for Medicare and you learn from a bureaucrat in a phone conversation that they're going to stop reimbursing some drug from a pharmaceutical company that's going to cost that company $10 billion a year, you can go out and short that drug or sell stock in that drug. Were you a person in the private sector and do that, it would be insider trading. But for members of Congress up to this point, that has been deemed legal and ethical by the ethics committees.
On the one hand, kind of amazing because the Senate never agrees on anything. On the other hand, apparently there are 2 senators who are opposed to this.
You're very rarely going to have 100% support on these issues, but the fact that the vote was so lopsided, it then indicates to me that when the American people learned about this through the book and through the 60 Minutes episode and through my appearances with you in the past, that the people were very, very upset, and members of Congress, they want to keep their jobs. So I think that's why the vote was so lopsided. The bill by no means is perfect. It does not deal with options trading. It does not deal with members of Congress who get these sweetheart IPO deals. It doesn't deal with land deals and other forms of enrichment that I talk about in my book. But it's a first step forward, and I think there are other steps we needed to take to make sure that this practice ends completely.
Well, you spoke of land deals, and ironically, there's a great article in the Washington Post, big investigative piece, where they went and looked through congressmen's earmarks, and it turns out they're directing tens and hundreds of millions of dollars to infrastructure projects that happen to run right by their home or by some piece of property they want to develop, or helping to shore up the beach in one instance, where the guy has a cottage a block away. So is this the next kind of realm of disclosure, restriction, etc.?
Absolutely. I mean, I talk about this in the book. I have a whole chapter on land deals. 60 Minutes touched on this. Washington Post now has gone and done more extensive research, and the issues are the same. There's nothing illegal about them using taxpayer money to enhance their own real estate values, and the ethics committees, and I'll put that in quotation marks, have signed off on these kinds of earmarks, saying it's okay if they use taxpayer money to, say, build a road somewhere or to beautify a part of a town where a senator or congressman owns real estate. I mean, that's outrageous. So yes, this is part of the reform effort that needs to take place. I hope that it happens in the House and then it gets kicked back to the Senate and we get movement in that same area as well in the Senate. And the good news here is this genuinely seems to be an issue that gets bipartisan support. You've got Republicans and Democrats that are in favor of fixing this problem. If for no other reason, then they're getting a whole lot of heat at home from their constituents.
Right. Well, Peter, the great columnist Michael Kinsley used to say the scandal isn't what's illegal. The scandal is what's done that is actually legal. And both these areas seems to be instances of that. Peter, thank you very much for joining us.